Hey, everybody. I am so excited to be spending the next 4 weeks with Toni Morrison, one of the best American writers to have written, in my humble opinion, and in the humble opinion of many, many, many other people. Toni Morrison is one of my absolute favorite writers. She died just last year after having given us a number of really wonderful novels and some powerful essays as well. Um, this picture is from my personal collection at home. I have some more of her novels at my office on campus. But you can see on the far right there my very well loved copy of Song of Solomon that I had to tape together because it broke in half. I'd read it so many times. So let's talk a little bit about her work. So here is a list of some of the awards that Toni Morrison won. You can see that this is quite an impressive list, including the Nobel Prize in Literature. She was the first American woman, the only Black American to have won the Nobel Prize in Literature. Barack Obama bestowed the Presidential Medal of Freedom upon her. She won the Pulitzer Prize, the National Book Critics Circle Award, and so on. So a whole range of important literary honors. So one thing to know about Toni Morrison is that her contributions to literature transcend the novels that she herself wrote. She was also, before she became a novelist, an editor for Alfred Knopf, and she had a huge role in helping to get the work of Black authors published. This quotation from one of her admirers, Hilton Als, says that her editing had a very particular goal: to offer readers stories about Blacks, women, and other marginalized characters which hadn't been told before. So again, even before she became a novelist herself, she had an impact on American literature. I also really like this quotation from Rachel Kazi Gansa. Morrison makes Black life regular, quotidian Black life, the kind that doesn't sell out concert halls or sports stadiums, complex, fantastic, and heroic, despite its devaluation. So I'd like you to think about that as you read Song of Solomon, the way that she takes just regular Black life and makes it complex, fantastic, and heroic. I think that's a really cool thing to think, a really cool way to think about her literature. Here's a quotation that she gave to the same writer in an interview 5 years ago. What I'm interested in is writing without the gaze, without the white gaze. In other words, she's not particularly interested in a white audience or what white readers think. What interested me, she continues, was the African American experience throughout whichever time I spoke of. It was always about African American culture and people, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. But that was, for me, the universe. So let's look at Song of Solomon specifically. The novel was published in 1977 to good reviews. This was her third novel, so people already knew of Toni Morrison. The Bluest Eye was her first novel. I think that's widely taught in high school these days, so you may know her from that as well. So Song of Solomon in 1977, this reviewer said it was an exuberant expansion of her themes and literary techniques. Using legend and the tradition of Black oral history, she traces a family from Reconstruction to the Civil Rights Movement, from slavery in the South to farming in Pennsylvania, to middle-class respectability in a Midwestern town. So think of those ideas of oral history and a family's story. Um, Another reviewer from Oprah.com calls this a novel in which mystery unfolds on mystery, revelation on revelation, in which our vision of what we have seen turns, changes, and takes shape again, transformed. It is a novel expressing with passion, tenderness, and a magnificence of language the mysterious primal essence of family bond and conflict, the feelings and experience of all people wanting and striving to be alive. So here's what to expect as you read. First of all, as the blurbs I just pulled from reviews suggest, there's a family saga here. There's drama, there's secrets, there's murder, there's greed. It's all in there. It's also a coming of age story. Milkman, our protagonist, hasn't even been born when our story begins. And we will follow Milkman as he grows into a young man. I want you to think about Milkman and what kind of young man he is. I also want you to continue to think about magical realism. We haven't talked about this since we finished the Underground Railroad. Remember that magical realism is the presence of magical or supernatural elements in an otherwise realistic context. So the world of Song of Solomon, this Midwestern Michigan town, is very realistic in many, many ways. But every once in a while, there's something unusual that happens. And I want you to think about whether those can be explained by something natural or whether it's magical realism. All right, so in the coming 4 weeks, we are going to have a variety of assignments. They're all posted in weekly content. I'm breaking it down by week as usual. Obviously, you'll be reading quite a bit. Usually I teach this novel in 3 weeks. I have broken it down into 4 weeks for this class so we can take a little bit more time with it and relish in the language and the plot and the character development a little more. As usual, you'll be posting in discussions, 1 primary post a week minimum, and 2 replies to classmates each week minimum. There'll be the usual weekly quizzes, and those will be designed to correspond with the reading guide. So if you're using the reading guide, and if you're reading really carefully, you should do well on those weekly quizzes. And then your second writing assignment will be due when we finish the novel. And for this assignment, I'm going to try to build in some flexibility here. I want you to pick one of 3 options for this. First of all, you can complete the reading guide. Second of all, you could write a traditional literary essay where you pick a very specific character or theme and analyze him or her. And third is, if you like to do a little research, you can go into our library's OneSearch and locate 3 scholarly articles about the novel and write up an annotated bibliography about those assignments. So let's take a look at what I have posted under D2L. Here is the assignment sheet. The purpose of the assignment, whichever option you choose, is to think more deeply and develop a rich understanding of one of the masterpieces of African American literature. You'll choose one of these options, but the first option requires you to fill out the reading guide while you do the reading. So that's why I want to talk about this now, so you can decide if you want to do the first option. You can get going on that right now. Personally, I think option 1, this reading guide, is the least stressful and the least time consuming in the long run, but that depends upon you and how you work and what kind of work you value doing. I think it'll definitely help you understand the novel better. But you should choose the option you like best, okay? So this is in addition to your regular discussion posts and so on. So the assignment for option 1, if you choose this, is, like I said, to complete the reading guide. You'll answer all of the questions in the reading guide, and you can get help with those through our discussions as well, so you won't be completely on your own. I have broken this assignment down into 2 sections, so you would submit the first one on November 7th and the second on November 24th. So let's actually take a look at the reading guide and see what that entails. So this first page of the reading guide is general information for you to think about, some themes for you to think about, and so on. If you do the reading guide assignment, what I would want you to do is type in your answers to all of these questions as you're reading or shortly after you read. Okay, and remember, if you're reading these, if you're doing the reading guide and you don't know how to answer one of the questions, remember that you can ask about that in our discussions. Okay, so you can see there's a lot of questions here, right? This is a complicated novel, but I would ask you to answer all of these questions. Oops, I just noticed we went from 10 to 12. And then at the end of each chapter, I ask you to basically summarize what you thought of the chapter. Okay, so the nice thing about the reading guide option is that it's very informal. You literally fill out this document and submit it, the first half in a couple weeks, the second half later in November, and it will help you really understand the novel. Okay, my students who did this option last semester did really, really well with it, as long as they took it seriously and made an attempt to answer all the questions. Okay, if that doesn't sound interesting to you, oh, before I move ahead, here's the rubric. So you see, to get an A or a B, I'm just looking at, did you answer the questions? And are your answers reasonably correct? Do they show that you've done careful reading and thinking? Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking at organization or grammar or anything like that. Okay, and then the second option, if you would rather, is to write a formal essay. You've written plenty of essays before, I assume. If you haven't written too many essays about a literary text, I can give you some more guidance on that when we come to it. But you're going to write at least 900 words. Stronger essays will probably be closer to 1,000 words. That's 3 to 4 pages. You'll have a thesis statement, a specific point that you want to make as you interpret a specific part of the novel, and you'll support it with textual evidence. Okay? This deadline is November 24th. November 24th is the deadline for all 3 final assignments. And then this is the rubric that I will use when I grade it. So you notice that I'm not just looking at completion, but I'm looking at, do you have a thesis statement? Are you focusing on your original ideas? Are you showing strong comprehension? Are you explaining clearly? Is your writing organized and clear and correct? Okay, and the third option is for those of you who like to do a little research, who like to dig deeper. And this is to write an annotated bibliography. If you do this option, you're going to be using our library's database. You might also use Google to find 3 scholarly journal articles. These are articles that are published by literary scholars, typically university or college professors, for peers, for an audience of other experts in the field of literature. There are a lot of really good articles out there that scholars have written that dig deeply into the themes of Song of Solomon. So if this interests you, you'll find at least 3 of them and read them through. And then you will write me an introduction about what you learned. And then an annotated bibliography basically just means that it's like a works cited list, but after each citation, you summarize and evaluate the source. You tell me what that source was about, and you evaluate it. Okay, so each of these should be about 250 to 500 words long. So you can see that lengthwise, options B and C are about equivalent. They just require different kinds of thinking and different kind of work. So those are your options for the Song of Solomon writing assignment. Again, if you do the journal, this is the one where I am asking you to turn in the first half of it on November 7th. So that means you would need to make the decision reasonably soon if that's the option you want to go with. If you have any questions, you know what to do. I'll post threads where you can that are specifically devoted to your questions. I hope that you really enjoy the novel. I guess one thing that I will end with is the fact that this novel is written in perhaps a way that you aren't used to. Remember how we talked about Whitehead and how sometimes you don't know what's going on in the novel Underground Railroad, and you have to wait for Colson Whitehead to reveal things to you because he's not necessarily going to go in chronological order. That definitely happens with Toni Morrison, with Song of Solomon. When the novel first begins, you're not supposed to know what's going on. It's supposed to be a little bit disorienting. So be patient with the novel and trust that Toni Morrison, in her brilliance, will reveal everything to you, and just try to enjoy the language, enjoy the plot, and listen to what she's telling you. I am eager, as always, to hear your reactions to the novel. And I'll talk to you soon in our discussions and in email and by virtual appointment if you'd like.